Hi everyone, welcome to another tutorial from Design to Fine. This is the next tutorial of the toolbar series, and today you will learn how to use both the quick selection and magic wand tools, also covering how they work best for different uses. First, if you'd like to find an image that's sharp and in focus, this will work best for these tools if you're following along, which I will explain more about in a bit. As you might get from the tool name I've mentioned, Quick Selection, this is essentially another selection tool among the wide variety of selection tools Photoshop contains. The Magic Wand tool is also a selection tool, though works in a much different way than the Quick Selection tool itself. If you look over to the left side of Photoshop, you'll find the toolbar panel, and if you're viewing the double column layout, then if you click the little button at the top of the toolbar, it looks similar to a fast forward symbol to toggle you back from single to single column, which is the way I've got my layout set up. Once in single column, if you select the fourth tool down, this is the first tool I will be covering, the Quick Selection tool, which looks like a paintbrush with a circle of dots. If you bring your cursor onto the canvas itself, you'll notice the cursor looks like a circle with a plus symbol inside, and this indicates adding to your selection, which I'll show you now. As you've seen, I use this tool on the sharp section of the image I'm using. As I was saying earlier, it works best for these tools, and as you've seen, once I started getting closer to the edge, the tool snapped to the edge of that selection automatically, though this can vary a lot depending on the image you have. I find this tool can either work well or frustrate the life out of you. Next, I'll use the Quick Selection tool on an out of focus section of my image to show you the difference of the outcomes achieved. As you've seen, once I got to the edges of the selection, it didn't snap to them at all, which isn't what I wanted, and I'm sure you wouldn't either. So in order to try and fix this as best as possible, we need to use the subtract from your selection use of this tool. To do this, simply hold down on the Alt key on your keyboard, and you'll notice that the plus symbol turns to a minus symbol, which means subtract. While holding down the Alt key, click and drag over the area that is selected wrongly, and bring down as close as possible to the edge of your selection you want to make. If you find that it went too far into your selection, into the selection itself, then it's just a case of letting go of the Alt key again, which will switch back to the Add to selection, and then just click and drag out to the edge again until you're happy. At the top menu bar for this tool, if you look across to the right, you'll see an option called Sample All Layers ticked, and this basically means that if your image consists of multiple layers, then what you select with the Quick Selection tool will apply to all the layers, where if you untick this option, then you'll find that the selection will only be within the current layer you have selected, which is something to bear in mind. To the right of Sample All Layers, to the right of the Sample All Layers option is another option called Auto Enhance, and this helps to smooth out the selection as best it can, as sometimes you find that you can get jagged edges, so I generally keep this option ticked to get the best possible outcome. If you need to select a large area and your selection circle is too small, you can make it bigger by going to the top menu bar for this tool and selecting a bigger size, which means it will also be less time consuming. There also is a handy shortcut for this by pressing the function key labelled FN on your keyboard, followed by the opening bracket to make it smaller and the closing bracket to make it larger in increments. It's worth mentioning, to get even more control over how close you get to the edge of a selection, if you zoom in using the magnifying glass at the bottom of your toolbar, on the left side of your toolbar, or use the shortcut spacebar plus command plus left click for Mac and spacebar plus control and left click for Windows, you'll then be able to see the edge close up and get your selection as close as possible. Aside from that, this is everything you would need to know about using the Quick Selection tool. So I'll now move on to the Magic Wand tool. If you come over to the toolbar where the Quick Selection tool is selected again, you'll notice that there's a small triangle at the bottom right of the icon. This always means there are more tools in a drop down menu, so if you click and hold, you'll see that both tools appear now, so just select the Magic Wand tool from there and you're good to go. You'll notice that the Magic Wand icon looks visually like a wand, so it's also quite easy to remember the name of this tool. Unlike the Quick Selection tool, Magic Wand doesn't make selections from yourself clicking and dragging to make your selection. Instead, all you have to do is click the area you want to select and it should happen instantly like this. You will have noticed when I clicked on the metal bar that some of it's selected but not all, and this is because the magic wand is picking up textures and different tones within this area. Though if I come over to the green background containing the majority same tone and click, you'll notice that most of this selection was made correctly, and the reason for this is because it's a plain tone with not really any texture for the magic wand to notice, and therefore I have a selection which I'm happy with. If I wanted to add to the selection, I can do so by going to the top menu for this particular tool, as you can see here, and if you select the second icon to the right, which looks like two boxes overlapping, this means you can now click in multiple areas with the magic wand, and they will all show up as selections rather than the previous selection disappearing as it would have before. You've decided that one of the selections that you've made with the magic wand wasn't how you wanted it to turn out, so you're wondering how to delete it. Well, this is quite simple too. If you go up to the top menu again and select the next icon across to the right, this is the subtract tool, and then it's just a case of clicking on the selection you don't want anymore, like this. The last of the four tools is the intersect tool, which makes a selection of the overlapped area from your current selection, though this works better at times than others depending on what image you're using. If you're using the newest CS6 version of Photoshop, then to the right of the intersect tool is an option called sample size, which currently has point sample selected, which means that it will select the exact colour of pixel you select and no others. It has other options in the drop down menu, as you can see here, and as the numbers get bigger, it means that your selection will select more similar shades of that coloured pixel you selected, which will benefit a lot of people with different needs. To the right of sample size is another option called tolerance, and this changes the area of the selection from very strict to very loose. For instance, if you select a tolerance of 1, you will see that the selection is so compact and has a small range, as you can see here, whereas if you selected the highest value of 255, it will select the whole colour range within your image, which I've just showed you there again. So it's just a matter of finding a nice number of tolerance that selects the best portion of the selection you want to make until you're happy. The next option to the right of tolerance is anti-alias, which is ticked, and I generally keep this option ticked as it basically helps to keep the edges of your selection smoother, though obviously if you're working with vector shapes or something similar you might want to untick anti-alias. To the right of anti-alias is the option called contiguous, and this also relates to the number of tolerance you have set previously. In simple terms, contiguous selected, it will only make a selection of pixels within the colour range that lay beside each other. So if there are two of the same colour ranges within your image, but they are separated by an object, then only the one area of pixels will be selected. Though if this happens, all you have to do is uncheck the contiguous button, and you'll find that it will now select all the pixels within your image within the same colour range determined by the size of your tolerance. The next option to the right of contiguous is sample all layers, which is basically the option I talked about earlier, as it's also an option for the quick selection tool, which allows your selection to cover multiple layers when checked, though if unchecked it will only affect the current layer you're on, providing you have multiple layers. The last option at the right of the menu bar for the Magic Wand tool is the Refine Edge button, which when clicked brings up a lot of other options to give you more control over your outcome. It's just a case of playing about until you find a medium that works well for your selection, though you might be happy enough with how your selections turned out without the need to fix anything else through the options that are there. Now that you've learned all the options of these two tools, you hopefully are now a bit more aware of the different uses both can provide. So to sum up these two tools, the quick selection tool, it's good for selecting areas pretty quickly, though mainly only works well with high quality and sharp edges in focus, as it finds it easier to pick up and snap to the edges. And the Magic Wand tool, well, it works best with plain colour ranges with a high contrast, as it means the full selection you want will be selected with ease at the touch of a button, and if you aren't completely happy with the selection, it has quite a few options to help you create a more accurate outcome. If you thought this tutorial was helpful, then please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel Design 2 Fine to get the latest future tutorials. See you all next time.